Hey everybody. So I wanted to go over this video with you, which is Jack Posobiec and Steve Bannon just running straight Kremlin propaganda online. It's a very scary video, so don't expect a picnic here. This starts with sympathetic video of Dugin's daughter getting blown up. So we'll see where that goes.
Ебать. Ебать. Это походу... Ебать. Это походу, это, блядь...
And poor, sad, genocidal maniac Alexander Dugin being sad about his genocidal maniac daughter. And I don't like seeing people die, but sorry, no Dugin is off the table. This guy is a maniac.
Okay, welcome. You're in the War Room Special Edition. We're live here in Springfield, Missouri, the Springfield Convention Center.
Just to be clear, he's at Mike Lindell's Fraud convention where Lindell embarrasses himself for 3 days so that a bunch of people can get together and come up with anti-democratic psyops.
It is the summit, Moment of Truth Summit, to get to the bottom of everything that happened on 3 November 2020 and everything we're doing to make sure that we close the deal this November. We got an all-star cast doing this today. Liz Harrington's
Despite the
here
graphic over top of him, he just looks fucking horrible.
Seth Keshel, just on and on. Joe Allen's also going to join us.
So Joe Hoft is a gateway pundit, Russian propagandist for many years. Seth Keshel is Captain Keshel, who worked for Mike Flynn in Afghanistan.
In this next 2 hours, I want to really thank Real America's Voice for having us here live. This is kind of the Great Awakening part of this for the next couple of hours.
So, right there, off the top, let's be clear. Great Awakening is two things. It is QAnon, obviously, it was one of the main slogans of QAnon, but it's also part of the title of Alexander Dugin's book, which is a pro-QAnon book that Mike Flynn named his PSYOPs tour after. I've done another video about that. I'll put it in the description.
Here, there's a lot of spiritual discussions, a lot of great music, discussion, talks, all that. So we're going to be cutting in and out of the main stage with our guests. We want to start with major development overnight, an assassination attempt on Alexander Dugin, one of the...
Assassination already, right? You could argue that, but, Dugin has been an enemy war combatant against Ukraine for 20 years.
Most prominent geopolitical thinkers in the world, and of course the chief strategist for...
Prominent geopolitical thinker. Now, again, I'm just going to briefly describe Eurasianism, which is what Dugin advocates for. Eurasianism is taking over all of Europe and all of Asia into a Russian empire with Moscow as the third Rome. Would be a theocratic society based on Old Believer ideology, which is 17th century Orthodox Christian, regressive insanity.
Putin outside of Moscow, an attack in an automobile blown up. His daughter died and other young people injured. I wanted to go to Jack Posobiec. Jack, who joins us by phone. Jack, put in perspective how massive a development.
Okay, Jack Posobiec has been Mike Flynn's asset and Russia's asset since 2016. They got together with Peter Thiel and a bunch of other white nationalists and started MAGA 3X. MAGA 3X stole the 2016 election by running psyops against Hillary Clinton. So that's who Jack Posobiec is. This guy has been a fucking harmful Russian asset, blatantly, for 6 years at least. And, you know, places like Twitter protect him. It's incredible.
This is, and is this Ukrainian intelligence with assistance from the CIA that did this? What's the latest?
So Ukrainian intelligence, CIA, that's exactly what the Kremlin wants you to think, right?
Hey, good morning, Steve. Good morning, everyone. And as of course, you know, the reports are still coming in, so normal caveats as usual.
Normal caveats as usual. Jack Posobiec is also, by the way, a literal Nazi who likes to sprinkle 1488 in his communications, which, you know, is the 14 words to protect white children, and 88 means Adolf Heil Hitler.
We have no idea who did this or how it was planned out. From what we have heard so far, local authorities are reporting that the car was, in fact, the father's car, but she happened to be driving it. They were at some kind of family reunion, and it's the car he normally drives. Yes, she was driving it. He rode in another car, and that an explosive device was found underneath the driver's seat. And so this does look as though it was a planned assassination attempt on Dugan himself. I'm seeing some people saying that they may have been targeting the daughter, but it seems more than likely that this was an attempt on Dugan. Now, because he was in the car next to her, there's also videos you can see of him outside the vehicle, hands on his head, just utter shock. And I think what people need to...
Oh, that's so sad. I'm sorry, but come on. He's generating sympathy for Alexander Dugin, Putin's strategist who overtly wants to murder millions of people. Overtly, he says it out loud.
To understand is that regardless of your stance on this war, you have to understand this is a major escalation. This could potentially be...
Regardless of your stance on this war, it could be a major escalation. Regardless of your stance. No matter which side you're on. Russia, US, meh, whichever. Up to you.
A Franz Ferdinand moment on the Eurasian landmass.
Sorry to keep interrupting. Franz Ferdinand is, you know, largely his assassination is credited with starting World War One. So the psyop today is that this is the Franz Ferdinand moment. Lots and lots of other traders are saying that stuff too on YouTube and, you know, Rumble and wherever else.
And we, you know, I'm sure Victoria Nuland and all of her buddies are popping bottles down at the State Department right now. But I would urge, you know, pump the brakes just a little bit, because you have to understand there are going to be responses to this, and there are going to be geopolitical fallout on the backs of committing terrorist attacks, assassinations inside the Capitol.
So Posobiec is threatening, you know, Ukraine and the United States because, you know, of terrorist attacks inside of Moscow. I mean, Putin is murdering kids every single day. He's putting people on trial. He's denazifying. He's de-Ukrainianing the country. He is a genocidal maniac. But, you know, both sides. Oh, you hit his main his main propagandist. Boy, that's really, you know, really tough stuff there. Fucking traitor.
We're going to have immediately, where there's going to have to come forward the CIA. Any CIA involvement in this with SBU has to come up. We have to know any American involvement, because you're absolutely correct. This is a major escalation. This is not just Putin's inner circle. This is considered the chief strategist for the whole Eurasian strategy of Putin, whether you agree with that or not.
Again, whether you agree with his Eurasian strategy or not, his Eurasian strategy is genocide across 2 continents. That's literally what it is. And it's whether you agree with it or not. Are you fucking serious? Get these fucking traitors off the street.
This is be like an assassination attempt in the United States of a senior level member of the government. Now, SBU is trying to take credit for this, but the SBU, the Ukrainian intelligence services, which, by the way, are totally controlled by the CIA, it's impossible for them, you agree, Jack, to be able to strike into the heart of Putin's inner circle in Moscow, in the suburbs of Moscow, without help from other intelligence services, whether that's people in the FSB or KGB that have turned, but it's impossible for the Ukrainian intelligence to be able to do this themselves.
So he just said the most likely answer, which is that internal forces, did it, right? There's a lot of people who are pissed off at Putin, including Russian dissidents, including Ilya Ponomarev, who took credit for it. So, the CIA, buddy, I don't think so. Not, no.
Jack Posobiec.
Well, Steve, we know that Ukraine has received considerable U.S. intelligence assistance throughout this war, so it certainly wouldn't be anything over what's just routine for us to say that there have been U.S. intelligence high-level coordination with Ukrainian intelligence. Now, to say that they would commit something like this and the U.S. would allow themselves to be involved, I mean, that would be super, super high level. I mean, the U.S., of course, if anything like this was done, it would be completely off the books and more like the passing of information, that type of thing.
Yes, it's off the books.
Rather than any official setup. And also, I mean, you think about it, you could even be going on the dark web and find some people within Russia and going and paying them in Bitcoin. There's been the Russian mystery fires that have been going on since the beginning of the war. Nobody's really sure.
This is really funny, sorry. But Jack Posobiec, for many years, has been outed as getting Bitcoin from the Russians. So the fact that he's talking about, paying people in Bitcoin on the dark web to do ops inside Russia is the most hilarious projection I've heard in a long time. You fucking Nazi traitor.
Or what's going on there, but it seems like people are just getting paid off on the dark web to go and do that, setting fire to Russian recruitment stations, things like this. And so the idea is it would be completely untraceable if any Western intelligence were involved. But that being said, the idea is they're now hitting soft targets. And I think people need to understand that and internalize it.
They're now hitting soft targets. No, Jack, you fucking traitor. You know this. A soft target is civilians. Alexander Dugin is the last thing from a civilian. His daughter is the last thing from a civilian. She got the Order of, Freedom from Putin posthumously. Give me a fucking break. She worked for the Russian government and the project to take over Ukraine. These are not soft targets, dude.
That if you've set the table now, if you set the bar in attacking soft targets deep within your enemy's capital, then if that's the case, what is the reprisal going to be? What is the response going to be? And this is exactly how World War I kicked off. This is what slid everyone into the Guns of August situation, because what it was, Gavrilo Princip and Franz Ferdinand and the coffee shop and all that, Sarajevo, the Crown Prince of Austria, striking back at the Ottomans. The question is this a moment, or will this lead to further escalation that gets
this fascist propagandist is not the president of a country. He's a strategist in a war. Dude, I mean, it's incredible that these people, just do this in the open for fucking years.
It's everyone to trigger their treaties like the NATO treaty and then tip this over into a much more cost. And we've seen, by the way, Ukraine now striking more and more into Russian-held territory like Crimea.
What he said was important. That if they strike into NATO countries, then it would potentially actually start an official war. And Putin has been putting out that the Ukrainian intelligence person escaped to Estonia, which is a NATO country. So I'm concerned that Putin is planning on some kind of NATO incursion, and this is setting up the public for it.
They're striking into places across the border in Belgorod.
He just said Russian control. They're striking into places that are Russian controlled, like Crimea. That's fucking Ukraine, jackass. You know it. The reason why Crimea is in Russian control is because Mike Flynn was the head of the DIA in 2014 and allowed it to happen.
So this has been going on for several weeks now, and we're seeing now this attack inside Russia, which, of course, we can't say that for sure that it was the Ukrainian intelligence services, but certainly
sure.
I think that's where everyone is thinking right now.
Everyone. No.
Jack, before we let you go, we know you're heading to mass with the family, so let's go here in a second. My theory of the case is, and I've said this since the great Jonathan Swan did that interview with Zelensky main stage at the party at Davos in the World Economic Forum, where Zelensky's lecturing us that we should read memoirs. We don't know enough. We haven't read the memoirs of World War II, which I said the next day. He should read the best and the brightest he should start reading up on a guy named President Diem in Vietnam. We've seen the White House trying to distance themselves from Zelensky. The Tom Friedman leak. There's been these leaks about the people, the Washington Post interview where Zelensky said, I didn't tell the people in Ukraine about the invasion because I didn't want everybody to flee. There's a lot of the Ukrainian people are turning on him. Do you believe this is the opening gambit in the intelligence services, what the administrative or what people call the deep state, starting to move on Zelensky? They're going to try to negotiate a deal with Zelensky.
There it is. Fucking QAnon straight up, right? The deep state actually are moving on Zelensky, and that was the first move, right? So there's a big conspiracy, but Zelensky is actually the target, right? It's the same thing as Donald Trump is going to save the children. It's the same bullshit. It is projection. And that's why this scares me, is because of what they're projecting. And half of what they project, they do.
Starting to move on Zelensky. They're going to try to negotiate a deal with Zelensky, get him out, or eventually go President Diem on him. Jack Posobiec.
Well, Steve, you have been calling that, laying on the card on the table that we're going to see assassinations, and you've been saying that all week, and then boom, here we see one.
Yeah. These people are Kremlin propagandists. They know stuff. They plan stuff. That's what's going on here. Bannon just does his psyops in public. And we should shut this down. This is fucking dangerous. There are hundreds of thousands, millions of people watching this shit all day long. Like this particular channel. This is really dangerous.
Not in Kiev, but actually over in Moscow. The idea that the intelligence services, the national security services are starting to step up, and whether that's the raid on Mar-a-Lago, this attack in Moscow, we're starting to see that because the geopolitical situation has gotten so caustic and so frictive at this point that now
frictive is not a word, jackass.
This is where one spark can ignite a powder keg, and the world is a powder keg right now.
And that's it, right? That's what they want. It's a powder keg. They want war. And that could be just Putin posturing, and probably is. But it's also, a very scary escalation for somebody who has overtly used, weapons of mass destruction.
Remember, you've got Zelensky saying that at the World Economic Forum. He says that to Swan, but then he goes over to the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, and says that he wants to bring them in. He understands that that relationship is unsteady. We're seeing that with Thomas Friedman. We're seeing that in a variety of other articles. That being said, the money seems to be continuing to come from Washington. But everyone knows that any spark could ignite this into a much greater situation. And that's the same domestically as it is internationally. And that's where these intelligence services or even potential third-party chaos agent actors can come in and set the entire world on fire.
So let's just be clear. Jack Posobiec knows all about chaos agents. That's what he is. MAGA 3X was just chaos agents. That was the entire purpose of it. They were organized chaos agents. They created Pizzagate. Posobiec went to, Ping Pong Pizza. This has been going on since summer of 2016.
You've just nailed it. And Diem, when the Americans tried to get him to heave to about the Buddhists burning themselves in Saigon, he said, hey, look, there are other sponsors out there. That was Zelensky said, hey, I want the CCP here, and told Xi, I see Ukraine as a land bridge into Europe. He's been playing with fire, and Zelensky ought to understand if his SBU did this that, hey, all bets are off on this thing right now. But Jack Posobiec, you got a major show on Real America's Voice, 10 o'clock every night. Of course, Human.
So, this is two Kremlin propagandists, both of whom are followers of Alexander Dugin overtly. Posobiec has posted pictures of Dugin's book. Bannon's entire philosophy, traditionalist philosophy, is based on Dugin and Julius Evola, who was one of Hitler's propagandists. These guys want war. They want chaos because Bannon actually believes in the Kali Yuga, which is, the destruction of the world where after the golden few will rise to take over. And Posobiec just works for fucking Putin, but they don't give a shit. They are on team destroy America, and they should be fucking stopped. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.